Welcome to Paycheck for Life, Acera's new and mid-career employee webinar. In this webinar, we're assuming that you're either new or you're somewhere in the middle of your career, which is why we called it the new and mid-career employee webinar. The bottom line there is that you're not near retirement yet, and in the context of retirement planning, that's a good thing because it still means you have plenty of time between now and when you retire to do that planning. So in this webinar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know about doing that planning. And since you're curious enough about retirement planning to watch this, you probably already have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know about my pension? What do I need to do? Is there anything I need to do? And if there's something I need to do, what do I need to do? Well, I'm going to answer all of your questions during this presentation, and I already think I know about 95% of what you're going to ask. So I've arranged the answers to what I think you're going to ask into the checklist that we're going to go through during the presentation. So here's the topics that we're going to cover. I'm going to help you understand a little bit about retirement basics regarding Acera, and then I'm going to move into helping you understand a little bit about pension math. And the reason that I'm going to do that is, and show you our retirement formula, is that there are ways that you can dial in your pension from Acera, and you're going to want to know that starting now. And it doesn't take that long to understand how we actually calculate your retirement and what influences how high your retirement payment from Acera gets. So that's what we'll cover in this section. As part of that, I'll talk about purchasing service credit. Then I'm going to help you get a precision pension estimate from Acera, so you can look into the future and see what we're going to provide you when you retire from Acera. I will help you understand retirement eligibility. This is when you're actually eligible to retire. There are some requirements that you need to meet to actually be able to do that. I will talk a little bit about our additional benefits that we offer, including healthcare benefits. I will help you designate your beneficiary or beneficiaries for our death benefits. And then I will talk about some career planning options. And what I mean by that is that at some point in the future, you all are going to stop working for your public employer that you're currently working for. So then what are your options regarding your account with Acera and your retirement planning and savings? Then the last thing that we'll cover, we'll move into making a retirement planning picture, which is that we take a little peek into the future and we see what it looks like so that we can come back into the past and start dialing in your retirement so that by the time you get to retirement, you'll be all set. And as part of that discussion, we'll talk about starting a 457(b) account. Okay, let's jump right in. So let me help you understand some retirement basics about Acera. First off, who is Acera? Well, in one sense, we're this acronym. Acera stands for this acronym, the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But what we do, the 90 plus employees of Acera that work here, we are county employees, so we're public employees like you, and our entire job is to provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. That's you. You are a part of the who that is Acera. And you're a part of Acera because of the position that you work in and the employer that you work for. So you work in a retirement eligible position, and at some point in the past, you worked full time, at least in the past. You may still work full time, but in order to enter that retirement eligible position, you had to start out at full time. You can go down to part time later, but that's totally fine and maintain your Acera membership. But at least at the beginning, you worked full time. For one of the 6 public agencies in Alameda County that use Acera to provide retirement benefits to their employees. So if you work for one of these 6 places in that retirement eligible position, you are automatically an Acera member. Your membership is automatic and it's mandatory, so you have no choice. As an Acera member, you pay into Acera's fund with every paycheck, and that's called your employee contribution. So if you look at your pay stub and you look in the before tax deductions column, you'll see a line in there, and it's good to just check on this to make sure it's there. You'll see a line in there that may say something like retirement. It may say your tier. We'll talk about your tiers in a minute. And you'll see some money coming out of your check because this is a deduction. The money comes out of your check and it goes into Acera's fund with every paycheck. And every time that happens, your employer makes a contribution on your behalf. So that's the employer contribution. So we have two sources of contribution from you and from your employer. Now, we don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. So what we do is we invest it in a diverse array of investments all over the world with the goal of earning interest. And over long periods of time, we achieve that interest. We earn a significant amount of interest each year if you annualize our earnings over long periods of time. So it's these three sources of income: your contributions to the fund, your employers, and the investment earnings that give us this big pot of money that we call the Acera Fund, which is one of our jobs to manage. And we have a investment department, a whole bunch of professional investment staff doing this job, and additionally, our Acera Board of Retirement manages this fund. So, what do we do with this big pot of money that we have collected and earned? Well, as you work throughout your entire career, you're going to earn credit toward retirement. The longer you work, the more and more and more credit you're going to earn. You earn credit toward retirement in three different categories, which I'll show you in a few minutes when I show you the retirement formula. But basically, the longer you work, the more credit you earn toward retirement. And at some point in the future, the reason that you're doing this is because you are going to retire. And at that point, you stop earning credit toward retirement and you start collecting the retirement you've earned in the form of a monthly retirement allowance for life. So we send you a payment, direct deposit to your account every month for the rest of your life as soon as you retire. So you cannot outlive your retirement. It happens each and every month for the rest of your life. It's a guaranteed source of income that you can count on. It's kind of a beautiful thing. Pensions are special in this way because it's a guaranteed source of income, and because it's based on a formula, you can plan on what that source of income is very precisely. You can get very precise, accurate estimates in the future, for the future, on what that income is going to be. And then it's guaranteed, so you get it for the rest of your life. Private employers do not do this much anymore, so it's very advantageous that you work for a public employer and you get to participate in a pension. Another thing I always like to point out is that, and this little fact here, everything that you contribute to the retirement system throughout your entire career, plus all the interest that we will pay because we're paying interest to your employee contribution account whenever the fund earns interest. When you retire from Acera, we are going to give all that money back to you within your first 3 to 5 years of retirement. But in the vast majority of cases, people live much longer than that after their retirement. They live 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years after retirement. Everything after that first 3 to 5 years, it's almost like this magical bonus that you get to have because you participate in a defined benefit pension plan. But really, that's just the way that it's built. We pay you out your employee contributions and we pay the employer contributions, and the rest of it is investment earnings, which account for about 75% of your lifetime pension. So us professionally managing your pension on a bulk group basis gives us a lot of investment advantages, and that gives us the money to fund your retirement for the rest of your life. Okay, so let me show you this chart right here of pension milestones. These are some of or perhaps all of the milestones you will see regarding your membership with Acera. And so what this will do is it will help provide some context for some of the other details that I'm going to give out during the rest of the presentation. So first off, you have your date of hire. This is your first day in your retirement eligible position, your full-time retirement eligible position. Okay, then for 4 of our 6 employers, 2 weeks goes by. And the first day of your second pay period is your date of entry into Acera. So this becomes your first day of Acera membership, and this is the day that you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, for 2 of our employers, the Housing Authority and Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, there's no lag time. Your date of hire into the retirement eligible position is your first day of Acera membership. Okay, now you're an Acera member. You start earning credit toward retirement. What happens? Well, you work for 5 years, let's say, 5 full-time years, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years. And when you do that, one of the categories that you earn credit toward retirement in is called service credit. It's basically time worked. So once you earn 5 years of service credit with Acera, you are considered vested in the retirement system. Now, what does vesting mean? It's kind of a loose term. It kind of means guaranteed. So when you're vested in the retirement system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. You're basically guaranteed the guaranteed benefits. At 5 years, you start being able to unlock the ability to access those guaranteed benefits. And I'll talk more about that later. Okay, so now you're vested in the system. What happens? Well, some other amount of time goes by. And through some combination of your years of service credit and your age, you become eligible to retire. There's a few different combinations that will get you there. I will show you those in the second half of the presentation. But this is the day that you could retire if you want to. This is the first day that you're eligible, that you could physically retire. Now, many people, I would say the vast majority of people, do not retire on this day because the longer you work, the more credit you earn toward retirement, the higher that monthly payment is going to be. So many people work past their retirement eligibility day. So the next milestone is your termination date. This is the date that you leave your employer. Okay. So this is the day that you stop earning credit toward retirement. And then the next day on the milestone is your retirement date. Now, this is a date that you choose. This is the day that you start collecting your retirement. Okay, now the reason that I have overlapped these here is because the vast majority of people go straight from their active job into retirement on 2 consecutive days. So you leave work one day, your next day is your first day of retirement. That's not necessarily going to be the case for all of you, though. Okay, so there is an option where you stop working and you don't retire immediately. You defer your retirement to a later date, and then in that case, there would be a gap between these two milestones, and that's perfectly fine. I'll talk about that in the second half of the presentation when I talk about career planning and what your options are when you terminate your employment from your employer. Okay, so let's say that you have stopped working at your employer and you have retired. This is when you start collecting on that lifetime retirement that you have earned throughout your entire career. Okay. And like I said, you will get a retirement payment from Acera each and every month from Acera to your bank account until your death. And that is when your retirement payment stops. So it's a guaranteed source of income. Now, there's one more milestone on the chart, and that is because when you go to retire, you have the opportunity to name what is called a continuance beneficiary. And a continuance is just a continuing monthly payment after your death. A beneficiary is just somebody who you've designated to get your benefits. So you name the continuance beneficiary at the time of retirement, you retire, you receive your retirement payments every month for the rest of your life, and then after your death, your continuance beneficiary would receive monthly payments going forward, and in most cases, it's a lifetime benefit. So when your beneficiary dies, that would conclude our monthly continuance payments to your beneficiary, and that would also conclude us paying out all of the benefits that Acera owes to you and your family. Okay, so those are the pension milestones. Now, I mentioned vesting while I was talking about the pension milestones. Let me say a couple more words about that real quick. I said vesting kind of means guaranteed, and it happens when you have earned 5 years of service credit with Acera. That includes reciprocal service credit that you earned with another agency in California that you have linked together with Acera by establishing reciprocity between Acera's pension system and that other pension system. I will go into that in detail when I talk about career planning options, but I just wanted to mention that the 5 years of service credit includes all the reciprocal service credit from all the systems linked together, and the guarantee part of the vesting comes from state law. The state 1937 Act tells us how to do everything in Acera. It governs everything we do, tells us how to calculate the retirements, tells us how to do everything, okay? And that guarantee comes from state law. And the guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits, are that monthly retirement benefit for life that I've been talking about, annual cost of living adjustment, which is a percentage increase to that monthly retirement benefit for life that you get every year in retirement, and a $1,000 lump sum death benefit. Now, there are some other death benefits that will be available to your beneficiaries, but this one is one that I'd just like to mention. It's a basic death benefit. And I want to mention another thing here about this terminology, monthly retirement benefit. There are some synonyms that you'll probably hear me say. This is just part of our pension lingo throughout the presentation. I may say pension benefit, retirement allowance, pension allowance, monthly pension. All those are synonyms for this same idea, this same monthly retirement benefit for life. Okay. So that's the main guaranteed benefit. Okay. So regarding the rest of the pension basics, let me finish it up with telling you about your tier. You are all in one of these tiers, and your tier is based on your date of entry into Acera, your first day of Acera membership. Okay, so first of all, let me help you figure out which one of these timelines to look at. If you are a safety member, which is a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, you are looking at this bottom timeline. Now, everyone who's not a safety member is a general member. So you're looking at the top timeline. Unless you're a general member who works for the Housing Authority or a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, and then you look at the timeline for your tier. Okay. The way this works is that if you enter Acera before the cutoff date for the tier, that puts you in the earlier tier. So if you had entered Acera before July 1st, 1983, that would have put you in tier one. Not a lot of tier one members left who are active who haven't retired yet. Now, if you entered Acera July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would have put you in tier two. If you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would have put you in tier four, and that's the case with all of the timelines. And let me just mention reciprocity again. If you do have reciprocal service with a different pension and you've linked it together with Acera, that date of entry into the first pension system that you have linked together with us would be the one that we use to determine which tier you're in. So reciprocity could put you in an earlier tier. You'll notice that the Housing Authority has a different cutoff for tier one. LERPD does not have a tier two. They have a tier three that they negotiated for their employees. And they have a different tier one cutoff. And you'll notice that safety members have three different tier twos. And if you're a safety member and you entered October 17th, 2010 to December 31st, 2012, you had the choice between Tier 2C and Tier 2D. And if you didn't choose within your first 45 days of your safety membership, you were defaulted into one of the tiers. Okay, now you may be wondering, you may not remember what your date of entry to Acera is. Was it before the cutoff or not? Or you may not know which tier you're in. The best way to verify both your tier and your date of entry into Acera is in your online account with Acera. So let me show you that real quick. And I'll show you how to log in there. Okay. So you go out to acera.org. Okay. Acera.org, acera.org. Okay. On every page of acera.org, there's this button, login, sign up. Okay. Now, if you have logged in here within the last year, if you logged in here in 2025 or 2026, that means that you probably have already created your username and password for this, and you can just use it to go ahead and log right in. This is our member portal. It's called Member Direct. If you have not done that, let me show you how to actually enroll in this. And before I go further, if you are brand new, if you're in your first 7 weeks of work, like you started your job, your full-time retirement eligible position less than 7 weeks ago, you can't do this yet. So you're not going to be in the system. You can't enroll yet. And what you need to do is wait for the welcome letter that we're going to send you that happens about 7 weeks after you start your job. That will actually contain instructions on how to do this. Okay. But if you have already been here for more than 7 weeks, then you can go ahead and enroll. And the way that you enroll in this, if you haven't done so before, and this is a brand new system. We replaced the old system it would have been about November of 2024. So if you haven't logged in since then, you're going to have to create a new login and go ahead and enroll. So you click the enroll link here. And to enroll, you're going to need this enrollment pin. And to do that, you need to request it. So you click here, request an enrollment pin. And then you put in your info and you hit request pin. Now, what this does is it generates a paper letter on our side in our office, and we will print that out. We will put it in the mail for you, and you'll receive it within a few days of requesting the PIN. Okay, so it does take a few days. Sorry that it's not instantaneous, but the reason we did that is to keep security super tight because this is financial information and it's needs to be super secure. So once you receive your letter, there will be instructions in the letter that will bring you back to this page. Then you can put in your PIN and add the rest of your info here, create your username and password, and hit enroll. And then after that, you just get in here with your username and password, and that's how you do that. Once you get in there, it will tell you which tier you're in, because it connects with your account in our database, and it'll have your date of entry. It'll have all the other stuff, service, how much service credit you've already earned, how much the balance of your employee contribution account is, everything. Okay, so that's your tier. Okay, at this point, what I like to do is I like to give you a little preview of this slide because we're going to talk in detail about this at the end of the presentation. But I like to do this right now just to provide a little context for the entire discussion. Okay. And this is kind of the overarching theme of why we're in this webinar. Okay. Because what we want to do is when you go to retire, we want to make sure that you have enough retirement income to maintain your standard of living. And what financial planners will tell you is that in order to maintain your standard of living in retirement, whatever you were getting paid from your job right before you retired, your retirement income needs to be at least 80% of that amount in order to maintain your standard of living. So it needs to be at least 80% of your salary. And your retirement income is going to come from a few sources. Your Acera pension, or any pensions that you have, which is kind of another synonym that we will call it is paycheck for life. So you get your employer paycheck, you stop working, and then you retire from Acera, and we basically send you a paycheck for life. That's your Acera monthly pension payment that you get for the rest of your life. And you can kind of categorize any other pensions that you have in here. The next source of income is going to be payments from Social Security because most of you, if you're general members, you're not safety members, which is again sheriff's deputies and probation officers. All general members are paying into Social Security, so you can expect to collect payments from Social Security when you reach the right age, which the earliest age is 62. And so you can include that as your retirement income. And then anything beyond that is going to be your own personal savings and investments. Okay. So what I'm going to do at the end of the presentation is we'll revisit this slide, and then I will talk about how to get estimates of the first two and then figure out if that gets you to 80%. And if it doesn't, how much to start saving now in order to get pointed in that 80% retirement income trajectory. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell you a lot about Acera's pension, and then I'll revisit this whole idea when we get there. And if this gives you any sort of anxiety, I'm with you. Okay. So the idea of like saving and having enough money when you get to retirement gives me anxiety. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to break it down, how to break each one of these things down, make it simple. We're going to use some technology, some calculators, and you'll see that you can go through this process probably in 10, 15 minutes to find out if you're pointed at 80% and then figure out how much to save. It'll only take you 10, 15 minutes. Okay. So let me tell you a lot about Acera before we get there. And as part of that discussion, what I want to help you do is understand a little bit about some pension math. This is basically the only math that we're going to talk about, and you don't really have to do any math. So I just want to show this to you how this works. It's just a simple multiplication. And this is how we're going to calculate your monthly retirement allowance for life, that paycheck for life when you go to retire. Now, you're probably saying, I'm not going to retire for a while. This is the new employee slash mid-career webinar. My retirement is a ways away. Why do I need to know this right now? Well, the reason I want to tell you how this works right now is because these are the three categories of credit that you're earning toward retirement over the course of your career. And the way that you dial in your Acera retirement is by knowing how each one of these is calculated so that you can maximize each one of these three numbers that maximizes your retirement allowance. Okay. So if I explain it to you now and you don't have to remember all the details, but if you have just a general sense of how this works, As you go throughout your career, it'll be way easier. It'll like demystify this for you, and you'll be able to kind of think in terms of how to maximize your future retirement very easily. Okay. So when you go to retire, this is the retirement formula that we're going to use to determine your monthly retirement allowance for life. Now, what this sentence right here is saying in English is what this multiplication is doing. So let me walk you through this step by step. It's actually pretty easy. Okay. Think about the future. Okay. Years from now. So you have worked in your job for a while and you're going to go to retire. Okay. What you can expect as your monthly retirement allowance from Acera when you do retire from Acera and we start paying you your monthly retirement allowance, what you can expect in terms of the dollar amount of that payment is that you will get a percentage of your highest salary for each individual year that you have worked in this job, each year of service. And this is years of full-time service or the equivalent of years of the full-time equivalent. Okay. So let me plug in some numbers here, and I think it will help illuminate this a lot better. Okay. Let's say, for example, this is just an example. Let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary that you are going to get for each year of service that you have worked by the time you retire is 2%. We'll plug that into the age factor percentage slot here. So you're going to get 2% of your highest salary for each year of service. And let's also imagine that you worked for 20 years exactly full time or the equivalent of 20 years full time. Maybe you worked 19 years full time and then 2 years half time. That gives you 20 years of service credit with Acera. Okay, now, in this example, you would get 2% of your highest salary for each individual one of those 20 years of service. So essentially, we're taking 2% of your highest salary and adding it up 20 times. We're putting 2% plus 2% plus 2% plus 2% 20 times. We're adding 20 of those together to get 40%. So essentially, we're multiplying these two together. 2% times 20 is 40%. Okay? So now we know your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest salary. To finish out the example, let's say that your highest salary when you go to retire is $5,000 per month. Well, we finish out the multiplication. 40% of $5,000 is $2,000, and this becomes your monthly payment from Acera that you receive every month for the rest of your life. This is your pension payment. This is your paycheck for life. Okay. So, because this is a multiplication, the bottom line here, if you take anything away from this discussion, the bottom line here is that the higher any of these factors are, the higher the age factor percentage, the higher the years of service credit that you work, the higher your salary equals a higher monthly retirement allowance because it's a multiplication. So the higher any of the three factors are, the higher the monthly retirement allowance is that comes out of the multiplication. So the way that you dial in your Sarah pension is by dialing in each one of these three factors. Now, it's not, this part is not you don't have a lot of leeway to dial in each one of these factors. The place that you mostly have the leeway to dial in is your additional savings, which we'll talk about when we talk about making a retirement planning picture at the end of the presentation. But there are some little ways around the edges that you can make sure to maximize each one of these three parts of the retirement formula. So I'll talk about that when I talk about each one of these parts. So let me give you some more details about each one of these three factors in the retirement formula. Okay. First, I'll talk about the age factor percentage and how you earn credit toward retirement in that category. So let me ask a question. What percentage of your highest salary will you get for each year of service when you go to retire? Because it's not necessarily going to be 2%. To answer the question, we'll look at this age factor percentage chart. And the percentage that we'll put in the formula for you, the percentage of your highest salary that you'll get for each year of service, is based on how old you are when you retire and what your tier is. Okay, first off, if you're a safety member, that's a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, you're looking for your tier over here. If you're a general member, you're looking for your tier over here. And what you do is you find your tier, like if you're a general tier 4 member, you're just looking at this column, forget about all the other numbers, they don't apply to you. These are the age factor percentages that are written into the law that we use to determine your retirement. And so these don't change, and your tier does not change. Okay, how this works is that let's say you're a general tier 4 member and you retire at age 60. Well, you can see that those intersect at 1.80%. So 1.80% would be the age factor percentage that we would plug into the formula for you right here. Okay, so it wouldn't be 2% in that case. It would be 1.80%. You would get 1.80% of your highest salary for each year of service. And so you'll note that the numbers get bigger the older you are when you retire, because this represents your age at retirement. So basically, the way that you earn credit in this category is just by getting older. So it's a pretty easy one to do. The older you are when you retire, the higher the percentage is going to be, up to a maximum for your tier, which is represented by the blue box. So tier 4 maxes out for general members at 2.50% at age 67. That would be the maximum percentage we could put in the formula for you. If you retire older than that at 68 or 69 or 79, you would still just get the 2.50% in the formula for you. And that's the case with all of the tiers. They all max out in the blue box. One more thing I want to point out about this is that it's not actually based on whole ages. It's based on you aging a quarter year. So if this were the actual chart, these are just some examples that I pulled out because they don't all fit on the slide. It would actually say 52, 52 and a quarter, 52 and a half, 52 and three quarters, 53, and so on and so forth. Every quarter that year that you age, there's actually a slightly higher incremental percentage that you get, and it's based on your birthday. You don't really have to know all these details at this point if because you're a new employee or you're in your mid-career. Kind of if you do want those details, it's out at acera.org/age. If you do want to see all the incremental increases, kind of the bottom line here is the older the retirement age, the higher the age factor percentage, up to the maximum for your tier. So if you remember anything about the age factor percentage, just remember that part of it. Okay, let me tell you about your years of service credit and how we calculate that. You start earning service credit, like I said before, when we were looking at this pension milestone chart, when you enter acera. So on your first day of your second pay period, if that's your date of entry, or if you work for the Housing Authority or LARPD, it's on this date of hire. Okay. So once you enter acera, you start earning credit toward retirement in the service credit category. And it's basically years worked. So if you worked for 20 full-time years, you would earn 20 years of service credit. Um, and so you earn service credit during your entire career, all the way up until you terminate employment. Now, your service credit is measured in years, but we also calculate it down to the fraction of a day. So if you log into your account on our website and you look at the amount of service credit that you've earned, if you've worked here for like, let's say 7+ years, it'll say something like 7.84562. All those decimal places are us actually calculating your service credit down to the fraction of a day, and you will earn service credit all the way up until your last 15 minutes on your last day of work for your employer. And we plug in, when we do the retirement formula, you get all those decimal places in there. When do you earn service credit? You earn service credit during your regular work hours, and that makes up the bulk of your service credit. Now, you also earn service credit during your earned leave times, including earned vacation leave, sick leave, if you get management leave during that time, if you have some comp time during that time, holidays and floating holidays. Whenever you mark any of these leave times on your timesheet, you earn service credit during that time. They do not count against you in terms of earning service credit toward your acera retirement. Now, there are some times when you do not earn service credit. Anytime you're on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit. If you purchase additional vacation, some of our employers allow this. So you earn a certain amount of vacation. If you wanted extra, they'll let you buy like an extra week, for example. If you, whenever you take that purchased vacation, you mark that purchased vacation on your timesheet, you're not earning service credit during that purchased vacation. Okay, also, if you sell your vacation back to your employer, you don't earn service credit for it. And this is where you take your earned vacation and you sell it back to your employer for cash. You don't go out on the vacation, you just sell it. You don't earn service credit for that. Also, you don't earn service credit time for overtime, on call time, or standby time. Okay, now, because service credit, again, as I was just showing you before, is one of the three multipliers in the retirement formula, which means the higher your amount of service credit, the higher your retirement allowance that we're going to pay you every month for the rest of your life. One of the ways that you can maximize your service credit is by purchasing any eligible time you have. So this is one of the best ways to dial in your Acera retirement allowance to its highest by making sure that if you have any of these types of time, you purchase them. Okay. So let me walk you through these. First, before I do that, you'll note none of the categories here is just what they call airtime, which is you just want to buy extra service time just because you want to increase your retirement allowance. So that is not allowed. The law does not allow for that. But what the theme here is among these different categories of time that are purchasable is that the law did not allow for you to earn service credit during that time when that time was incurred, but it does allow for you to go and purchase that time later to make sure that you are able to include it in your service credit amount when we calculate your retirement. So the first category is called ineligible or non-covered service purchase. So there's some subcategories here. This includes part-time work that you worked for your employer before you achieved your full-time retirement eligible position. Now, I'm not talking about working for a temporary agency or a temp agency or an employment agency, or I'm also not talking about working under contract. Those are not purchasable. So this is just plain old part-time work for one of Acera's 6 participating employers. You can buy that time once you achieve your Acera membership. Also, the county's temporary assignment pool, which is what TAP stands for, that time is purchasable. Seasonal work, intermittent work, service as needed, project work, per diem work. There may be some other categories. It's basically time worked before you achieved your Acera, your full-time retirement eligible position that made you an Acera member. So those are purchasable in those categories. Then we have the 2-week lag time between your date of hire and your date of entry. That's purchasable. Unpaid medical leave. So this is where during your career, you go out on medical leave for a medical condition, and this is only for your own medical condition, not for a family member's medical condition. You go out on medical leave and maybe you burn through all of your sick leave and vacation leave and all that. And then you're still employed, but you're on unpaid medical leave. So when you return from that unpaid medical leave, you can buy that unpaid portion as a Acera service credit, up to 1 year per instance, so 1 year per leave. So if you're out on 1 year of unpaid medical leave, you come back and get a paycheck. You go back out again, or you're on another year of medical leave, you come back and get, and then you come back. Both of those times are purchasable. So it's up to 1 year per instance. State disability insurance leave is where you become you're kind of temporarily disabled, or you're out on workers' comp. And in those cases, you will get paid from the state's disability insurance system or the state's workers' comp system. Sometimes you're also paid by your employer. So if you are receiving a paycheck from your employer, you're kind of getting partial service credit. Maybe it's like half time. So you're already earning service credit for that time, but it's the other portion of the time that would be purchasable once you return from that state disability insurance or workers' comp leave. Okay. Military leave during membership. This is not prior military service. This is where you're actively employed with your Acera employer. You go out on military leave. You return from that military leave to your job. When you return, you can buy that time that you were out. Redeposits of prior memberships. This is where you used to be an Acera member in the past because you worked for one of our 6 employers. And when you stopped working there, You took a refund of your employee contribution account from Acera. So you took all your money with you that you had paid into Acera. And when you did that, you lost all your service credit that you earned when you were working that original job. You go do something else. Then you come back to work here again and you think, it sure would be nice to have that original amount of service credit back. Well, you can do that by redepositing an equivalent amount of money that you had taken out, and that is called a redeposit of a prior membership, and then we will give you your service credit back from that original work. The next category is redeposit of community property. This is where, while you are earning retirement with a SARA, because California is a community property state, um, the retirement that you earn with the SARA, the retirement credit that you earn, is one of the pieces of community property that when you get divorced or you dissolve a domestic state registered domestic partnership, it's one of the pieces of community property that sometimes gets divided up among between you and the ex-spouse or ex-partner. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can negotiate other pieces of community property away to keep your SARA account whole. People do that. But often what happens is part of the SARA account goes to the ex-spouse or partner. And when that happens, what they take with them is a piece of your employee contribution account, so your money from Acera, and a proportional amount of your service credit, okay, with them to their account. Now, if they then take a refund of that account because they want the cash, what we will do is send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that and give you a chance to redeposit an equivalent amount of money to get that equivalent amount of service credit back, and that is called a redeposit of community property. The final category, other California prior public service. This is where you used to work for another public agency in California, and they had a different pension system than Acera, because there's many pension systems for many of the public employers in California. And you're not working there anymore, you're working here. And you're not eligible to collect anything out of their pension system, probably for one of two reasons, usually. It's because either you didn't work there for long enough to get enough credit to actually collect your retirement from their pension system, or whenever you left that job, you took a refund of your pension account from their pension system. Okay. Now, you can buy that time as a SARA public service as long as you have taken a refund from their pension system. So if you, for example, worked for East Bay Mud for a year, you could buy that year as a SARA service credit. Okay. So those are the categories of service credit purchase that you can make if you have one of these types of time. Now, if you're brand new, you may not have any of these types of time. That's totally fine. It's just good to have heard this list. It's good to know that this list is out there because you may incur one of these types of time in the future. And the best time to purchase service credit is as soon as you can, as soon as you incur one of these types of time. And I'll tell you about that in a minute when I talk about what it costs to buy service credit in these categories. Before I do there, let me just quickly tell you about time that is not eligible for purchase. Any vacation purchase time. So this is where you purchase your extra vacation again. You can do that. You can take that extra vacation that you purchase, but you don't earn service credit and you can't buy that time later. You can't buy it back. Okay, if you ever are on leave without pay and it's not for a medical condition, that's not purchasable. Or if it is for a medical condition, but it's not your medical condition, it's not purchasable. So, for example, maternity leave is purchasable because that's your medical condition, but paternity leave is not purchasable because that's your family member's medical condition. And I know that that does not feel equitable. That is just because the county Board of Supervisors has not adopted the code section in the law that would allow for paternity leave to be purchasable. So if anybody has any feelings about that, it would be something to take up with the Board of Supervisors. I think that's how it works. Okay, so next item is contract or temporary agency time is not purchasable, and other prior public service where you still have contributions on deposit with the other agency. So that's this category here. If you worked for that year or 5 years over at East Bay Mud and you still have your account with their pension system, you can't purchase the time until you take a refund of that account. Now, before you go out, you rush out and take a refund of that prior service. If you are eligible to collect a pension from some other system at some point in the future because you did earn enough credit, it's probably going to be financially cheaper for you, less expensive to just leave it there and collect their pension than take a refund from their system and try to buy it with a Sarah because this one is expensive. This one costs 2 to 3 times as much as these. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, we'll talk about that right now. Purchase cost. How much does it cost to make one of these service credit purchases in any of those categories? Well, what it costs is what your employee contributions would have been had you worked the time. So, for example, let's say you go out on 3 months of unpaid medical leave and you return from that medical leave and you want to buy that time. Well, during that 3 months, had you been getting a paycheck from your employer, a Sarah would have been deducting your employee contribution from your paycheck, as I showed you in one of the first slides. Every paycheck you get, an employee contribution comes out. But since you weren't getting a paycheck, you weren't making those contributions to a Sarah, okay? So whatever that amount of money would have been based on, your own contribution rate and how much time, how many paid contributions you would have had to have made, that becomes the amount that it costs to make that service credit purchase for that 3 months of unpaid medical leave in that example. Plus interest. So the interest part is the interesting part. Your contribution, had you made it during that 3 months, had we taken it out of your paycheck, we would have invested that money. And that money would have earned a certain amount of interest. So, however much interest that money would have made had we invested it, we didn't have the money to invest, so we didn't invest it. But had we had the money to invest, it would have earned a certain amount of interest, and you're going to have to pay that amount of interest. And the longer ago the time that you're trying to purchase is, the more interest periods between that time and now that money would have had time to earn interest, so the more expensive it gets. So the bottom line is the longer you wait to purchase service credit, the more expensive it gets because of the interest that would have accrued that you're going to have to pay. Okay. So that's why I said the time to buy service credit is as soon as you can. As soon as you can, because you end up paying a lot less interest. Now, how do you figure out how much exactly it's going to cost? And and then how would you actually how would you actually start the service credit purchase process? Here's how you do it. You go to acera.org/forms. We have a purchase request form on that page. You fill it out, you submit it to us. We will do calculations based on what we know about you and your employment record, and we will send you a letter in the mail giving you the cost for how much it's going to cost to make that service credit purchase. And at that point, you can decide if you want to make the service credit purchase and even how much of the purchase you want to make, because we'll give you different options. Let me go back to the list. For all of the types of time, except for the redeposits, you could actually buy a portion of the time if that's all you can afford. The redeposits are all or none. Um, and the other thing regarding cost is when you buy these top bullet points here, you're only paying the employee contribution. The reason that the other California Prior Public Service costs 2 to 3 times more is because you're paying the employee contribution and the employer contribution. So at that point, when you receive the letter, you can decide if you want to make the service credit purchase. And we will give you different options. You can write us a lump sum check if you have savings that you want to use to pay for it. Alternatively, if you have savings in a pre-tax retirement account, and there are some examples here of the types of accounts that you could roll over money from, you could roll over money on a pre-tax basis to pay for that, a service credit purchase. So if you have a 457B account, you could roll over money to make that service credit purchase. We will, if you don't have either one of those, or if you just want to split it up over time, we will take it out of your pay, out of your paycheck on a post-tax basis. So we'll split it up over time through payroll deductions. Or we will do any combination of the above. So you could mix and match here. And it's when you get the letter that you decide. So if you do this process where you send us the form, you that doesn't mean that you have to make the service credit purchase. This is basically just the thing that starts the process, and it has us do the calculations and so that you know how much it's going to cost, and then you decide. Okay, so I told you the age factor percentage, how you earn credit in the age factor percentage category by getting older. That one's easy. I told you how you earn um, credit in the service credit category by working longer. That's the first way to dial in service credit. The second way is to purchase additional service credit, and that will increase this number. The third way that you earn credit toward retirement is by you simply earning money. Your salary is one of the three multipliers in the retirement formula. So the higher your salary, the higher your retirement allowance is going to be when we multiply this out. So, how do we actually calculate this highest average monthly salary? What we do is when you go to retire, our software is going to find your period of highest consecutive pay from anywhere in your career. In our pension lingo, this is known as your final compensation period. If you're in tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. If you're in tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. So essentially, for tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 3 years of pay. So it's always consecutive pay. So it's all, consecutive pay periods. Um, so for the vast majority of you, it's probably going to be the highest 3 years of pay because my guess is that probably pretty much everyone here is in tiers 2 or 4. So what we do is our software will look at your pay periods, your highest pay periods, your highest year of pay or 3 years of pay. And since the goal is for the calculation is to find your average monthly salary over that time, it will just take an average. So it looks at your total pay from all those pay periods, divides it by the number of months in that time to get your highest average monthly salary. So if you're in tiers 2 and 4, it's going to look at your highest 3 years of pay, take the total pay divided by 36 months, and that becomes your highest average monthly salary that we plug in the formula for you. Now, what types of pay are included in this calculation? Well, first of all, it's all gross pay before any deductions are taken out. So the first type of pay is base pay, of course, and this is going to make up the bulk of your highest average salary calculation. But there could be some other smaller pay types in there, some other pay codes. Sometimes these are known as footnotes. Some of these may count, some of these may not. To figure it out, because there's like 1,000 different pay codes, you look at what the pay code description or number is from your paycheck, and you can find it at acera.org/paycodes. And when you open up the PDF for your employer, it'll say yes or no whether the pay code counts toward this highest average salary calculation or not. Overtime is the one that I know never counts. All the other pay codes, you're gonna have to look it up. And if you need help finding it, you can ask your payroll manager for more info. Okay. So basically, the way that you dial in the highest average salary is simply by getting paid more. So, like I was saying earlier, you often don't have a lot of leverage, to increase your salary. But your salary will increase over your career through cost of living adjustments. Perhaps you'll get raises, so that'll increase it. Another way to do it is promotions. So that's a way to increase your salary. Another way to do it is simply by taking a different job that pays more. You could take a different job for your employer or one of our 5 other participating employers that has a higher salary. Alternatively, you do have the option of taking a job that has higher pay with a reciprocal agency, another public agency in California that has a pension system that we have reciprocity with. And if you get higher pay over there, it will increase your Sarah pension. I'll talk about that in detail when I talk about reciprocity in the final section of the presentation. So those are the types of pay. There's two more bullet points that I want to add here though, and it's only for tier one and tier two people. Okay. Some vacation sales and some vacation cash out could be included as salary for calculating your retirement. And this could be another way that you could slightly dial in, slightly dial up your Acera retirement allowance by dialing up your salary, by selling vacation, your earned vacation back to your employer during the final compensation period, or cashing it out, having it still left over on the books when you stop working and getting paid for it at that point. And that could increase your salary for tier one and tier two people only. Now, I'm not going to take a deep dive into that because that's like a whole 15-20 minute discussion. If you do want to learn more about that, what I recommend is if you're in tiers one and two and you're curious about that, go out to acera.org, scroll down to the bottom. There's a pre-retirement webinar here. So we have two webinars that we do. Not sure why they're so this is the one we're in now. Um, you're going to look at the pre-retirement webinar. That's a YouTube video. And all you do is scroll forward through the YouTube video until you get basically to that slide that I just showed you. And at that point, I take a deep dive into how the vacation sales and cash out affect the salary component of the formula. Okay, so going back to the slide presentation. Whoops. Going back to the slide presentation. One thing that I want to do point out about the salary component of the formula is that probably a lot of you are in tier four because if you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that puts you in tier four. Your highest average salary calculation that our software does is capped by law. And the cap is an annual amount of salary dollars. And if you make a higher salary amount than whatever the annual cap is, we cannot, when we go to calculate your retirement, we cannot include any more annual dollars in your retirement calculation above the cap. Now, it looks like I have not updated the slide here, but we have updated it out on the web at acera.org/limits. Sorry, I haven't updated the slide yet. So there are four different limits here that you may want to peruse. If you have high salaries, you're going to want to especially look at numbers 2, 3, and 4. Or if you're in tier 4, you're going to want to look at number 4. The 2026 caps, it looks like for general members, is $159,733. And for safety members, it's $191,679. So if you do have a higher annual salary than this, we do have to cap your salary calculation at whatever it is for that year that we're calculating your retirement. Now, these numbers increase over the years every time the Social Security wage index limit increases, which tends to happen annually, it looks like. And what happens in the present, though, is that if you do have a higher salary than these numbers, like let's say you have a $200,000 salary per year, well, maybe you hit the cap in October. In October, we would stop taking out employee retirement contributions from your check, your paycheck, and for the rest of the year. And then they would start back up on January 1st. So that would give you a little more money for that portion of the year to save in your personal savings. Okay, so let me show you the whole thing put together, the retirement allowance formula put together. We have a tier 4 member here. They retire at age 65 after earning 25 years of service credit. So because they're tier 4 and they're a general member, so this person is a general member and they retire at age 65, when we look at the age factor percentage chart, they're going to get 2.30% of their highest salary for each year of service. We multiply it by the 25 years of service, multiply it by the highest average salary, and that equals the monthly retirement allowance for life. So it's a pretty basic multiplication. And so again, these are the three factors that influence what your retirement allowance is going to be. Now, what I like to do is I like to multiply these two together. If you multiply the 2.3 30 percentage, like age factor percentage, you get 2.30 percent of your highest average salary for each one of the 25 years of service. So you multiply them together. This example, this person is replacing 57.5% of their working salary during their when they were making their highest salary with their retirement allowance. So this 3,450 is 57.5% of the 6,000. And just remember, just keep that in mind that your target is going to be at least 80% salary replacement. And if you were able to get this high of a salary replacement from just the Acera pension alone, you're doing really good. We'll talk more about that in the second half of the presentation. Okay, let me show you now that I have talked a little bit about how Acera works. I've talked about how the retirement formula works and the ways in which you can dial in your Acera pension. Let me show you how to get an estimate, a precision estimate of your future pension. Okay, so here's what you do. You go to acera.org. You log into your account. Again, if you haven't created your username and password, in there, you're going to have to enroll. I can show that to you one more time because I think there might be some people that joined us since that discussion. You go to acera.org, click the login button, and then you're going to click enroll. So if you don't already have your username and password and you've already worked here for 7 or more weeks, you can do this and you click enroll and then you click request an enrollment pin. We'll send you a pin in the mail, and then you can finish the enrollment process and get into your account. So let me show you some screenshots inside your account of what the benefit estimator looks like. So once you log in, you click on estimate a benefit here, and you'll see this benefit estimator here. Now let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. What you're going to put into the estimator is a plausible retirement scenario for yourself that you want to get an estimate for. Now, you can use this as many times as you want. You can use this hundreds of times if you want. So, if you want to see what happens if you retire 15 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 21 years from now, or 27 years from now, or 26 years from now, just keep plugging in different combinations of dates, and it'll keep showing you estimates for if you retire from Acera with that amount of credit. What you're putting in is a separation date and a payments begin date. So your separation date is your last day on payroll with your employer in your scenario that you want to get an estimate for, and your payments begin date is your first day of retirement. So this has to be at least the next day after your separation date. But in many cases, if so, let's say that you want to get estimates for working straight into retirement and retiring straight out of your job. Well, these would be 2 consecutive dates, like in this example. But if you want to get estimates for when you stop work, let's say you're going to stop work 5 years from now and you're not going to retire yet. You're going to defer your retirement to 5 years after that. Well, then there would be a 5 year separation between these dates. So you can do those scenarios. Okay, you can put in beneficiary info if you want. You may find that this is pre-populated because you've designated a beneficiary as an active member for your active member death benefits. If that's the case, just check the date of birth is correct because some of them are incorrect, and if it's not correct, it'll throw off the calculations. I recommend leaving all of these check marks unchecked for a nice conservative estimate, and then you can click generate. And what you end up with is this retirement benefit estimate PDF. Excuse me. So this is a precision estimate of your future payment from Acera that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life. There's a page 2 that shows you the different info, the different data points that it used to calculate this. So you can see kind of the back end of what numbers it's using to make the calculation. And I'll zoom in on page 1 of the main table. This is the main feature of the benefit estimate is the your estimated monthly benefit table, which shows you, it gives you a projection of what you can expect to be paid from Acera every month for the rest of your life once you retire in the scenario that you have done the estimate for. Okay. Now there's when you go to retire, there's these five retirement allowance options that you're going to choose from. Uh, that's something that I mean, you can, that we have info about each one of these on our website, and it kind of tells you what each one does here. So you can kind of think about that roughly, ahead of time when you're, thinking about your future retirement. But your situation may change. Your beneficiaries who you want to leave something to may change by the time you get to retirement. So I would recommend just navigating by this number right here, which is what the option that the vast majority of people take anyway, which is the unmodified option. And they take it because it pays the highest amount of any of the five options to you, the Sarah retiree, for the rest of your life. Okay, but it does give you projections on what it would pay for to a continuance beneficiary after your death on a monthly basis, if you die after retirement. Okay. One more before I move on, let me just quickly talk about, say a couple more words about that benefit estimate. You can make as many of these as you want, like I was saying. So this is a PDF. Every time you make one, it will download to your device. So you can just save them all on your device, and it will tell you what day you made the benefit estimate, and it will tell you which dates it was using, like which dates you plugged in, the separation date and the retirement date. Okay. And then it will also save it in your member direct account, in your Acera account online. So you can go back into your account and you can see previous retirement benefit estimates that you've made and download ones from the past. This is a precision estimate. This uses the best, estimating tools that we have in our pension database. Okay. Let me talk about this topic real fast and then we'll take a quick 5-minute break. Let me help you understand your retirement eligibility. So, again, to the pension milestones chart, you become eligible to retire through some combination of your years of service credit and your age. There are a few different combinations that will get you to retirement eligibility. So, I'll show you first the slide for eligibility requirements for tiers 1, 2, and 3. And then I'll show you tier 4 on the next slide. For tiers 1, 2, and 3, there are 3 different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. So the first combination, option 1, is that you are at least age 50. You have at least 5 years of service credit with Acera or combined among reciprocal agencies that are linked together, and you have at least 10 years of membership with Acera or among the reciprocal agencies combined. Now, tiers 1, 2, and 3 closed over 10 years ago, so we're not putting new people into tiers 1, 2, and 3, which means that everyone who's in those already has 10 years of membership, so you can just forget about that number. Don't worry about that. So just think about you're at least age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit. You can retire from Acera and draw a lifetime pension based on that 5 years or more of service credit. Combination number 2, option 2. You are a general member and you have at least 30 years of service credit, or you're a safety member and you have at least 20 years of service credit. You can retire at any age, even if it's younger than the age 50 you would need for option number 1. Okay, then option number 3 is that you can have any amount of service credit and retire at age 70 or older, even if it's less than the 5 years you need under option number 1. So if you had 4 years of service credit or 3 years of service credit and you stopped working here and you did not take a refund from Acera, so you became a deferred member, which is basically a member who's on hold and not earning more credit toward retirement. At age 70, you could draw a lifetime pension based on that less than 5 years of service credit. Now, it's not going to be huge, but it may pay for all of your bills in retirement. Okay, now tier 4, you have 2 different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. Combination 1, option 1, is that you are at least age 52 as a general member or at least age 50 as a safety member. And again, safety members are sheriffs, deputies, and probation officers. General members is everyone else. and you have at least 5 years of service credit. You can retire from a SARA as long as you meet these minimum requirements. So you can see that there aren't really stringent requirements to retire from a SARA, just the 5 years of service credit and the minimum age. And the minimum age is pretty young. So that's the minimum that you need. Now, combination two is that if you don't have the 5 years of service credit, if you have less than that, you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit. Okay. Let me, at this point, help you understand, just tell you a little bit about some additional benefits that we offer, um, just to orient you toward additional things beyond the pension that we offer. We offer medical, dental, vision, and other non-guaranteed benefits to our retirees. Also, disability retirement is an option that you have if you ever become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties. Instead of doing the regular retirement, which is sometimes called service retirement, we have a separate process called disability retirement, and you can apply for that. And you can it's a whole it's kind of a lengthy process to go through. It can take a while, but if you're awarded a disability retirement, there are some benefits to that. And we have a lot more information on our website at acera.org/disability. And then we have death benefits that we offer. So let me first let me just real quick tell you about the medical, dental, vision benefits we offer when you're a retiree. Then I'll talk about the death benefits should you die before you retire. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a chart, a table of the subsidies, the benefits, the payments that we offer to our retirees once they're retired in these categories, mostly for healthcare benefits, but there's also a supplemental cost of living adjustment that's on top of the guaranteed cost of living adjustment. Okay, so these are all non-guaranteed benefits. And the reason they're non-guaranteed is because they're not built into the pension law, but the county at some point in the 80s decided they wanted their retirees to be able to have additional subsidies to pay for their life in retirement. So they started a reserve fund that Sarah manages. Our board of retirement manages the fund. And the entire purpose of the fund is to have money available to pay for like medical, dental, vision, Medicare, and other healthcare amounts that retirees need. But it's not guaranteed. It's this reserve fund, and so money gets when our fund earns interest, interest gets credited there. So money is going in, but we're also paying a lot of benefits out of it. And so the Board of Retirement manages this fund and they want to keep it sustainable. And in order to do that, they set some rules on who can have access to those benefits, those payments, those ability to have money to be able to pay for medical, dental, and vision and Medicare care in retirement. Okay, so you can see that there's four healthcare subsidies, and all four of those healthcare subsidies, the rule that the board sets up to keep the fund sustainable is that you need a certain amount of years of Acera service credit to qualify to get these subsidies, this extra money toward paying for healthcare. And there's this medical subsidy that's known as the monthly medical allowance, which is what MMA stands for. There's three levels of that, and then there's dental, vision, and Medicare. And all of those start at 10 years of Acera service credit. Okay, so I like to point this out, even though you all are either new employees or you're in the middle of your career and retirement is a ways away. This is the reason that this is important is because you just know that these options are out there. Like when you go to retire, there are benefits available to help pay for these healthcare costs. And in terms of your career planning, you now know that you need a certain number of years of Acera service credit to qualify for these benefits. So, and reciprocal service does not count here. Only credit worked for one of Acera's 6 participating employers. So what that means is that 10 years then becomes a target for you all. Because once you achieve 10 years of service credit with Acera, when you retire, you get this extra money to help pay for your life and retirement, dental, vision, Medicare subsidy, and the first level of the monthly medical allowance. And then 15 and 20 years are also other milestones to shoot for if you get that far, because then you get more money to pay for your medical care. Okay. So that's why I like to return to the pension milestone chart and just add another milestone, which is the healthcare subsidies milestone. Now it might happen, the retirement eligibility might be before or after that, but I just like to put it up there, just so you know that 10 years is another milestone to consider when you're planning out your career. So for example, maybe you've worked here for 9.5 years already, and you're thinking about stopping working here and going and doing something else for a while. Maybe you don't want to do that because you're so close to the 10-year mark. Maybe you want to stick around for another 6 months, get over the 10-year mark, and that would make it so that when you finally retire from Acera, you would get money to pay for medical, dental, vision, and pay for the cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B. And that would be a lot of extra money on top of your retirement allowance that you would have to pay for your life in retirement. So if you shoot for getting past the 10-year mark, you get extra money basically, as long as that fund is sustainable. But the board manages it really well, and there's over a billion, $1.2 billion in there, I think now. So it's very sustainable right now. So that's kind of what I like to tell you about the healthcare benefits at this point. You don't really need to know more about them because the details will probably all change by the time you all get to retire. But that's the main thing that I want you to know right now is the years of service credit that you need to qualify for them. Okay, now, next benefit, extra benefit I want to tell you about is regarding death benefits and about designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for those death benefits and keeping them current. Okay, now, what is a beneficiary? A beneficiary is just somebody who gets a benefit. Your Acera beneficiary is the person that you designate with Acera on one of our designation forms to get your Acera death benefits. Okay. So you all, as Acera members, this is one of the things that is one of your benefits is after your death, we pay your beneficiaries a certain amount of death benefits. Now it all depends on the situation that you die in. Okay. So what I'm going to show you is some slides of the death benefits. And all of these scenarios are the death benefits that we would pay to your beneficiaries should you die before retirement. Now, once you retire, there's kind of a different set of death benefits that would be available to your beneficiaries. So we're not going to talk about those in this webinar. That's in the pre-retirement webinar. So I just want to tell you about the death benefits that your beneficiaries would get should you die before retirement. And this helps you with your life planning. Okay. So if you are actively working for one of our 6 employers, but you're not yet vested, which means you have not earned 5 years of service credit with Acera or among reciprocal agencies that you have, reciprocal pension systems that you have linked with Acera total. So you're not vested. If you should die before retirement, we would return the balance of your employee contribution account to your beneficiaries. So they would get everything that you had paid into Acera plus all the interest that we paid on to your contributions. Also, they would get 1 month of salary of your salary for each year of service that you've already worked up to 6 months worth of salary. So let's say that you have worked for 4 years already, and then you died while you were an active member of one of our 6 participating employers. Well, we would return the balance of your contribution account and 4 months worth of your salary for each one of those 4 years that you've already worked. Okay, now, next slide. If you are a vested member, so you're over the 5 year mark, you've already earned 5 years of service credit, then your beneficiaries get a choice. Option number 1, which is the one that I just showed you, this is the exact same as this. Okay, so they still have that option, but they have additional options now. Option number 2 is they could get a monthly survivor's allowance. And if it's a qualified beneficiary only, so it's spouse, domestic partner, and minor children. If it's spouse or domestic partner, it's a lifetime benefit. If it's minor children, it cuts off at age 18. Option number 3 is kind of a combination of options 1 and 2. They get a one-time lump sum payment of the salary and a reduced survivor's allowance. Now, now that I said that, though, to the qualified beneficiary, this whole thing, you can forget about that because there's this brand new option that you can do as of maybe the last 2 years. You can do this, and that is you can make an advanced death benefit election. Every active member should do this. An active member, and probably all of you are active members, is a member of a SARA who is actively employed for at one of our six participating employers, one of the six public agencies that use a SARA to provide retirement benefits to you, their employees. If you are actively working, you have a job, you're actively paying into a SARA, you're an active member. And if you're an active member, you should make this advanced death benefit election. There is no downside. There is only an upside. What the advanced death benefit election does is, under option number two, it maximizes the monthly survivor's allowance to the beneficiary that you name. So it's probably going to be more, in almost all cases, it's going to be more than had you not made the advanced death benefit election. And it allows you to name any beneficiary for lifetime continuance. Without doing it, you can only name qualified beneficiaries, which is spouse, domestic partner, and minor children. If you make the election, you can name anyone as a beneficiary. It doesn't have to be spouse, domestic partner, and minor children. It can still be them, but it could also be adult children or a friend or a relative or anyone. Any human with a lifespan can receive a lifetime allowance. And it's very easy to make this election. All you do, let me show you how to do it, is if you want more info about it, you go to acera.org/ADV and it'll show you our death benefits page where there's more info. All you do to make the death benefit election is fill out our beneficiary designation form. Now, before I show it to you, let me take a step back. You may have already done this. We sent out a notice about this maybe in the spring of 2024, letting everyone know that this was available. If you filled it out at that time and checked the box, you're done. So you don't have to do it. If you are brand new, if you are within your first 7 weeks of work, you cannot do this yet because you're not in the system yet. And so what you would want to do is you would want to do this on the Acera welcome form. When we send you a letter in the mail, we give you a link to the welcome form. The welcome form has beneficiary fields and the advanced death benefit election checkbox. And you do that on the welcome form. Okay. And if you have recently, within the last 2 years, entered Acera and you know you filled out your welcome form, that checkbox was on the welcome form. So if you check the box on the welcome form, you're done. Okay. Now, if you don't know, if you don't remember whether you did it, we don't currently have anything in your account on our website that you log into that you can tell whether you did it or not. So you can write into us. If you log into your account, you can contact us. There's a message center in there, and you can write to my colleagues, and you can ask them if you made the election or not. So that's what I would recommend if you don't remember if you've done it. If you know you haven't done it, go ahead and fill out the form. If you just want to be safe, you could just fill out the form again. You can always submit new beneficiary designation forms, and every new beneficiary designation form that you submit supersedes any previous beneficiary designation forms. One more thing I'll say is that if you have designated beneficiaries for the death benefits that your employer offers, that does not count for this. You have to designate your beneficiaries for your Acera death benefits on our forms. So your beneficiary designations here have no connection with your beneficiary designations anywhere else. Okay, so in order to make this advanced death benefit election, you go to acera.org/BEN, you save the form on your device, you complete all the fields, you check the box for the election, you print and sign the form, and then there's instructions on the last page to submit the form. So let me just show you that real fast. acera.org/BEN. It's a shortcut to this PDF. The first step is to download the form to your device. Click the download button, save it to your device, and that way when you fill it out, you'll be able to save what you put into the fields because the fields are electronically fillable. So you can fill it all out electronically, but you can't submit it electronically. Okay. So you fill out the information about you. Okay. You fill out the information about you. You name your beneficiaries. So there's three sets of primary beneficiary fields that you can name beneficiaries. And then you name contingent beneficiaries in the case that if you die before you retire, and it just so happens that your primary beneficiary predeceased you, and you didn't update your beneficiary, then your contingent beneficiaries would receive your benefits. So it's always good to name benefit contingent beneficiaries. So you fill out those fields. Then, coming down to the next page, you simply check this box. I elect the advanced death benefit election. There's some information here. It does tell you there is no disadvantage to making this election. There's only advantages, and this maximizes the benefits that go to your beneficiaries. So there's a spousal signature form. There's your signature. You can't sign it electronically. And then there are instructions on how to submit it. So all you do is you fill it out as much electronically as you can, print it to a printer, sign it. If you have a spouse, your spouse needs to sign it, and then you use one of these five options in order to submit it to us. One of the options is that you can scan it in and upload it in your member direct account, and that's how you make the advanced death benefit election. Okay, should you die before you retire, but you're no longer actively working for one of our six employers, you die as what we call a deferred member. Your only benefit that would go to your beneficiaries would be a refund of your employee contribution account and interest. Okay, so again, there's more info on the death benefits. You can dig into the details at acera.org/death and keep those beneficiary designations current. If your life changes and you need to redesignate your beneficiaries, just remember to refill out the form and redesignate your beneficiary. You can active members, you can change your beneficiary designations at any time. You can always find that beneficiary if you forget acera.org/ben. It's out on our forms page, so you can find it on our forms page. And then it's good to check your beneficiaries. If you log into your account and you click the beneficiaries link, you can see who you have currently designated as your beneficiary. And if that person if that's an old person, like if it's your spouse from three spouses ago, you're probably going to want to redesignate your beneficiary. Okay, last two topics. First, I'll talk about career planning options. Then I'll talk about making a retirement planning picture. And then we'll move into the 457B discussion as part of that retirement planning picture. So, career planning options. At some point, what I mean by career planning is that you are at some point going to stop working here. Either you're going to retire or you're going to do something else after you stop working here, but you are going to stop working here. Okay. So, what are your options regarding your Acera pension and your Acera account when you stop working at your Acera participating employer? Well, option number one is that if you are eligible to retire, you meet the minimum requirements, you can retire and you can start drawing your lifetime pension. If you do that, you earn service credit right up to your last 15 minutes of work on your last day of work. We will convert your sick leave that you still have on the books up to a cap and on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. And you can even work after retirement if you want to. So you could go work for anyone else who's not one of our six participating employers, and we don't care. You are going to be considered an Acera retiree, and we pay you your retirement allowance while you're working somewhere else. We pay it to you for the rest of your life. We don't even know what you're doing, but you're just an Acera retiree. Another option is that you could, after you retire from Acera, you could come back to work for one of our six participating employers, and you kind of have two sub options. Your first option is to continue your retirement payments, so you stay as an Acera retiree. There are some rules around that, that you don't earn any additional retirement credit toward retirement, and there's some rules around that that you're going to want to read before you think about doing that. Or you could retire from a Sarah, you could come back and then later come back to work for one of a Sarah's participating employers. And there's this new option that is new within the last year where you can pause your Sarah retirement payments and you do earn an additional second retirement. And then you can retire anytime. You could just work for another year or 6 months or whatever. You could retire anytime out of that second retirement. And we restart your first retirement payments also, and then you end up earning more total retirement. So those are your options if you should retire straight out of working. Okay. Now, if you're not going to retire when you stop working here straight away, your other option would be to terminate and not retire yet. So you terminate your job before you retire. So you're going to probably retire at a later date from Acera, or you may take a refund. Okay. You'll see there's some sub options in here. Okay. So if you do that, I'm going to show you three sub options. Your first sub option is option A. You become a deferred member, which is that you leave your contributions on deposit with the Sarah and you're still an Acera member. Option B is that you establish reciprocity with a different retirement system in California, and we link the systems together, which gives you synergy among the systems. I'll talk about that in detail. Option number three, option C, the third option is that you can take a refund of your contribution account with Acera. So let me tell you about each one of these. Okay. So if you were to defer, if you were to take option A and not retire immediately, what would happen is that your last day, your last termination, your last day on your termination date, your last day on payroll would not be immediately consecutive calendar days with your first day of retirement. So there'd be a gap here. Okay. So you are stopping work, but you're deferring your retirement to a later date. And that is why we call you a deferred member. So you're still an Acera member. Deferred, the word member is in there. You're just a deferred member. And you're a deferred member because you have your contributions on deposit with Acera. Your employee contribution account is still active. And we will continue to post interest to your contribution account. And we never post negative interest. People ask me what I mean by that because I kind of made up that term. We never take money out of your account once we put it in. And so what that means is that we keep your money invested. Okay. If we earn interest, we post to your account. If we post a negative return in one of our 6 month investment periods, because we have an investment period every 6 months. So if we post a negative return, we don't post a negative return to your account. You don't lose any money. Your money is 100% safe. And it's kind of an amazing place to park your money with the amount of interest that we have historically earned. And you can, if you want to check that out, if you go to acera.org/interest, that's a shortcut, and you can see how much we've earned in each one of those 6 month interest periods. And there's a reference column for basically how much we earned that year. Um, and you can see how much interest that we're earning. And I cannot think of another place that you can park your money that has zero risk, that earns the type of percentages that we have historically earned over long periods of time. So it's a pretty good spot to leave your money deposited. You can even retire later out of deferred status. Some people do this because you stop working and you're not eligible to retire yet. And then you just got to wait a few years until you meet that minimum age requirement. And then you can retire out of deferred status. Or you could defer and then you can decide later to come back to work and earn more credit toward retirement. So you would earn more service credit and you would get a higher retirement payment when you finally retire. Or as a deferred member, you can be refunded at any time, which means that you could stop working here. You could not make the decision whether you want to take a refund of your money yet. You don't have to make that decision immediately. You just become a deferred member. Make the decision later if you need to, because we will refund you at any time out of deferred status. So 5 years down the road, you decide, okay, I think I want to take my money out. You can do that. You can take option C and take a refund. In that time, 5 years worth of interest would have accumulated. There's more info at acera.org/defer. There are some good reasons to become a deferred member. There are some not so good reasons to become a deferred member. Sometimes people want to game the age factor percentage increase because if you defer and don't retire yet and retire at a later date, you will get a higher age factor percentage, but you're going to miss out on a lot of pension payments if you're already eligible to retire. So I don't find it'll talk more about that on there. I don't. Whenever I've done the math, gaming it that way does not give you get you more money. You end up with less money. Okay, so option B, if you terminate your employment and don't retire immediately, you can establish reciprocity with another pension system in California. Okay, so many of the California pension systems, many cities in California have their own pension system. There's a number of them. There's 19 other counties, I think, that have their own pension system. Those are called 1937 Act counties. There's some other counties that have their own pension system that aren't under this 1937 Act law. Um, any California state jobs, they use the CalPERS pension system, or there's many agencies that they're not big enough to have their own pension, but they use CalPERS to provide pension benefits to their employees. If you work for any of those places, there's a full list at acera.org/reciprocity. You stop working here and you go work for one of those places, you can link the systems together and that gets you some synergy between the systems. It gives you a higher retirement allowance among all the systems than you would have had you not linked them together. And here's how that works. Here are the benefits of establishing reciprocity. Here are the synergistic effects. The first is that service credit in all the systems combined gets you over the vesting and retirement eligibility requirements. Okay, so let's say you're a Tier 4 general member. You work for 2 years in Contra Costa County. Okay, you stop working there. And then you get a new job over in Alameda County. You work for 3 years here. And let's say you're over age 52. If you link the systems together, reciprocally, you establish reciprocity between them. The combined 2 years of service credit over at that other system and the 3 years here gets you over the 5 year mark. And you're age 52, all of a sudden you're eligible to retire from both systems when you weren't if you had not linked the systems together. Okay. The second synergistic effect of establishing reciprocity is that the highest average salary that you earn under any of those systems is used by all the systems when we calculate your retirement. So let's stick with that example. Let's say that you were making $20 an hour over in Contra Costa County and you come to Alameda County and you're making $35 an hour over here. And you work for some years and your salary let's say you get some raises and you go up to $40 an hour and then you retire from both systems. Well, if you've linked them together, what both systems will do when you retire, you got to retire from both of them on the same day, is we will each do our own separate retirement calculation. We'll use your age factor percentage from from the tier for each system. We'll each use your years of service credit. So you had 2 over in Contra Costa County, and let's say you worked 10 over here. Okay. And then when we get to the salary figure of the retirement formula, we both plug in the same number because the highest salary that you earn under any of the systems, we use to calculate it. So that higher salary from that previous work that you did over in Contra Costa County, instead of them using the $20 an hour figure, they're going to use whatever you retired with, $45 an hour or whatever it is, your highest average salary. And so that boosts your pension over there on all the previous systems. And so this is one way that you can dial in that salary component of the retirement formula for all the systems that you link together is by getting another job with a reciprocal agency. That's one way to do it. That pays a higher salary because the salary component will be used in all the systems when we calculate your retirement. A couple of other side synergistic effects. It could give you establishing reciprocity could lower your contribution rate in some cases, and it could put you in an earlier tier. If you want to know more about that, you could go to acera.org/tier or acera.org/reciprocity, and there will be more information about that. Now, just one more thing about reciprocity. To qualify for it, you got to do four things. I think four things. You have to leave all your contributions on deposit with all the systems you link together. So you do not take a refund when you leave one job of any of the systems. You got to still be a member, a deferred member of all the previous systems. No more than 6 months can pass between your termination date and the start of employment in the next job. So um, you don't want to you may not want to just quit here, assuming that you're going to get a new job with a reciprocal agency within the next 6 months. You may want to go ahead and line up the other job. You can have no more than 12 weeks of overlapping service. I always tell people just to have just have zero overlapping service. Some people will tack on vacation at the end of their career in one place and start work during that same period at a new agency. So you're on vacation for one employer and you're working for another. That's overlapping service. I say just have zero and it keeps it easy. They'll cash you out for your vacation anyway. So you'll get cash for it anyway. And then you have to retire from all the systems on the same day that you have linked together. You don't have to decide this immediately. You can establish reciprocity later if you want to, and we do have a form for that. But you can also establish it on your Sarah Welcome form when you fill that out. Okay, option C. So this is your third option. If you stop working and don't retire immediately, you can take a refund of your employee contribution account, which means we would give you back all the money that you paid in, that we took out of your paychecks, plus all the interest that we posted to your account. If you are just looking for cash and you want a lump sum payment, you may lose a third of your money right off the bat to taxes and penalties, especially if you're under, I think, 59 and a half. You incur the penalties. If you don't want to lose any of your money, the best thing to do would be to roll it over into another pre-tax retirement account like one of these. And then you wouldn't owe taxes. That's not a taxable event, and you wouldn't have to pay penalties. So you would get to keep all your money. And then another caveat here is it takes at least 45, if not more than 60 days to process this refund. So it takes a little time. It's not instantaneous. And basically, you're waiving your rights to all the Sarah benefits. You're saying, cancel my membership. I don't want the lifetime pension. I don't want access to the healthcare benefits or the availability to enroll in your group plans or, get paid the medical subsidies or the healthcare subsidies. I don't want the death benefits. Just cancel my membership and please refund my money. And that's your right to do because it's your money. Let me just remind you. Let me just do one reminder that remember that if you have worked here for long enough and you are eligible to retire, or you will become eligible to retire once you reach the minimum age, it may be when you sit down to do the math, you may find that it's more financially advisable to go ahead and retire from a Sarah rather than take a refund. Because I don't know if you remember, and one of the first things I told you is that if you retire from a Sarah, we're going to give you all your money back anyway, all your employee contributions and interest within the first 3 to 5 years. So it won't be a lump sum one-time payment. We'll give it to you monthly over the first 3 to 5 years, but then for the rest of your life, you have a guarantee payment. And I think that in most scenarios, in most cases, you'll find when you sit down to run the numbers that you will make way more money retiring from a Sarah on average in most cases. You'll make way by far more money if you retire from a Sarah and draw the lifetime pension than if you were to try to take your money out and invest it somewhere else. Okay. But again, it's up to you. Okay, last topic. We have just enough time. We have about 20 minutes before I turn it over to the 457B expert. Let me help you make a retirement planning picture. So we're going to put everything together. Okay. We're going to take a little peek into the future. In the future, you are not going to work here anymore. And because you're not going to work here anymore, your employer is not going to pay you anymore. So you're going to need money to pay for your life in retirement. Where is that money going to come from? Well, it can come from three different sources. Your Sarah pension or any other pensions you have from other agencies. These are known as your paycheck for life. It's kind of a different way to think about it. You stop getting your employer paycheck, but then a Sarah takes over and pays you your paycheck for life. that you've earned with your Acera pension. The next category is if you've paid enough into Social Security, which means that you've paid at least 10 years into Social Security, you will get to collect Social Security either starting at age 62 or if you take an older, if you start taking those payments at an older age, you would get a higher payment. Okay. So you can expect money from Social Security. Everything beyond that, your Sarah pension and Social Security is going to be down to your personal savings and investments. And like I said before, financial planners will tell you that you need at least 80% of your pre-retirement income to maintain your standard of living. Another way to say that is whatever dollar amount you are making, however much money you're making as a working person right before you retire, your retirement income should be at least 80% of that in order to maintain your standard of living. Okay. So, how do we figure out whether you're going to get there? What do we do to get you pointed in this trajectory of having 80% what we call income replacement by the time you retire? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to use some calculators and estimators. I'm going to show you how to get a pension estimate from a Sarah, I already showed you that, but I'll mention that again. Then we'll talk about Social Security, getting an estimate of that, and then we'll talk about using a calculator to figure out if you need to save more, and then we'll talk about if you do, where you might want to save it. Okay. So first off, first step is get some estimates. Okay, so you can get out, I mean, you can, get out a pad and paper if you wanted to while you're doing this process, or you could just save, all the estimates. It's all electronics. You could just save it in the same folder in your device, so you can reference it. But you get the Acera estimate and you get the Social Security estimate. So again, the Acera estimate is that you log into your account, you click Estimate a Benefit, you fill in your plausible retirement scenario, and click Generate. Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is the very first time you do this, do a scenario where you're retiring at age 62, just to start off with. Because age 62 is the first time that you can start collecting Social Security payments. And so if you retired from a Acera at age 62, you could start collecting Social Security immediately, and you do it all at once, and you just get a picture now of what that looks like, and then you can work from there. You can see what happens if you retire earlier than 62, where you can't get Social Security yet, but you would get it in a few years, or what happens if you retire later than 62. But I suggest picking a scenario where you start at 62 the first time around, okay? And then you can make adjustments from there. So you put in your dates that meet that scenario. You end up with your Acera retirement benefit estimate, and you look at what the unmodified option is telling you. This is your estimated monthly lifetime payment from Acera. Okay, so you got that. Now, you go out to the Social Security website, ssa.gov/estimator. You log into your account there, and and it's actually changed a little bit since I made this screenshot. So what you would want to do, the screenshot will look a little bit different when you log in there, but what you're doing is you're logging into your personal Social Security account and doing your personal estimate there. And it will show you 3 different ages, and then you can do other ages. There's a slider that will allow you to do other ages. But you see what they're going to pay you. And like I said, the first time around, maybe start at age 62 and see what they would pay you if you were to start taking your Social Security at the earliest age, which is 62. Okay, so let's say that I did that and I got all these estimates. Okay, so I'm just going to stick with the age 62 example first off. So I got the estimates. So Sarah is going to pay me in this example $3,007 per month should I retire at age 62. And Social Security is going to pay me $2,046 per month if I retire at age 62 from Social Security. Okay, so now I have a dollar amount for what my retirement income would be should I retire at age 62, but I'm not finished yet because that doesn't really get me anywhere. That doesn't tell me if I'm achieving the income replacement or not that I need. So what I'm going to do is use some additional technology, which is a retirement calculator. There are free retirement calculators out there. There's a list of some of them here. I'm going to show you, I'm just going to walk you through the Vanguard calculator. If you do sign up for the 457B plan, there's a calculator in your Empower or Retire in your Empower account if you sign into your 457B account online. So you can try that one out too. I recommend trying a few because they'll all give you different numbers. What these are these are just publicly available calculators, except for the Empower one where you got to start a 457B account. And for the public ones, it's these investment firms that basically provide the calculator because they want you to figure out that you need to save more. And once you figure out that you need to save more, they want you to invest with them. Well, you don't have to do that. You can just use their calculator for free. Um, I'm going to show you the Vanguard calculator, which looks like this, but I'm going to just go do it live, do a live example. Okay, so let me just Okay, so the way to get there, we have at acera.org, if you go under members, we have this planning your future retirement income article here. The shortcut is acera.org/planning. And this will actually walk you through step by step what I'm kind of going through quickly here. And in fact, we have this new video here. This 20-minute check could change how you see retirement, where I kind of walk through this a little bit more slowly, and you can just go at your own pace. But it does take you step by step through here, and we do have, if you go down to step 4, it does have links out to these free calculators. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the Vanguard calculator real fast. Okay, now it's going to ask you some questions. Okay, so you have all the information to plug in here. Sorry, my scroll wheel needs work. Okay, let's say for example, in this scenario, this person, this Acera member is age 35 currently. So you would plug that in. Whatever age you are, you plug in your own numbers. And let's say they want to do that initial um, calculation for age 62 just to see what it looks like if they retire at age 62. Okay. And then you put in how much money you make per year. Let's say this person makes 85,000 per year. Okay. This is asking how much you currently save per year. So if you do currently save additional money toward retirement, you can go ahead and plug that in. Let's say that it's zero. Okay, let's say you don't save anything currently. That's totally fine. We're about to see if you might want to save some additional. So just go ahead and leave it at zero. It also asks you how much you've already saved. If you do have some retirement savings, plug it in there. If you don't worry. We're going to see if you need to save additional right now. This number right here is the income replacement percentage that you want to target. Now, for this initial time that you go through this process, 80 is a good number to shoot for. So, retiring at age 62, 80% income replacement, just to see what it looks like. But if you do this process a few times and you play around with the numbers, maybe you want to see what 85% income replacement looks like. Maybe you want to see what 95% looks like or 100 and see how much additional you might need to save to get pointed in that trajectory as a buffer. And my colleague Gene Hilliard, who is going to do the 457B presentation, is going to try to get you pointed at 100% income replacement so that you're making the exact same in retirement as you were making while you were working. But for this initial example, let's try 80. Now, don't go below 80 though. I at least don't think you can. You can play with it if you want to. Do whatever you like. It's your retirement planning. This number here is a little fuzzy. This is the assumption. I expect an annual return of 5.0% for my retirement savings. What this is assuming is that we're gonna find that you need to save additional money, and you're gonna take that additional savings that you're gonna save every year, and you're gonna invest it somewhere with the potential of earning interest. There's different places you can invest it. A really good place to invest it is in a 457B account in a diverse basket of investments, which again, Gene Hillier is going to talk about in a few minutes. That's a pretty good place to save it. Over long periods of time, if you do put your money in a place like that, you will find that even though there's short-term ups and downs in the market tends to go up over long periods of time. And so this is kind of the idea here is that you will put your money somewhere with the potential to earn interest, and it's asking you kind of your appetite for risk here. So I think a good conservative estimate, maybe like a conservative number to put in might be like 5%. A kind of like middle of the road, conservative, a little bit less conservative than that is 6%, 7%. I feel like it's still middle of the road, somewhat conservative. That this is our expected rate of return for our Sarah investments. You can play with that number, but I think somewhere between 5 and 7% good. If you have no appetite for risk, you can find places to park your money where there's very little risk or no risk that earn around 2%. These days, there are high interest savings accounts currently that you can earn almost 4%, and there's no risk there. You just got to make sure they don't keep lowering your percentage earning down to something that's not great. But if you do invest it in like, a diverse basket of investments, 6 to 7% is probably a good number to plug in here. Um, so I'm going to use 6%, which is kind of moderately conservative. If you want kind of a moderate number again, that's probably going to be about 7%. Okay, now the best calculators, the most useful ones, the ones that we're linking you to, give you the ability to plug in Social Security and pension income. So my estimate from Social Security was 2,046, and my estimate from my Sarah pension was 3,007. Then I'm going to hit calculate. Okay, so what this is showing me is that in this scenario that matches all of these numbers I typed in, um, my expected retirement income is represented in this green column here. How much income I'm going to need to maintain my standard of living is represented by this gray column in the graph here. Okay. And you see that this green column is broken down into two categories. You have the pension income and you have the Social Security income. What this is telling me, because the expenses graph is higher than the income graph, is that I will not have enough income in retirement on this trajectory to maintain my standard of living. I will not achieve 80% income replacement with this pension benefit and the Social Security income alone. So what this is telling me is I probably want to go ahead and start saving additional money toward retirement. How much do I save? Well, you can redo the calculator and it will get you close. It will get you a good trajectory. So I'm going to edit the results. What happens if I start saving $1,000 a year, which would be about 1.2% of my income? And it keeps those numbers in. Hit calculate. Okay, so now you can see that it has added a little bit of retirement savings income, but not too much. It bumped it up a little bit, but not too much. So let's see what happens if I do 5,000 per year, which would be about 5.9% of my income. Hit calculate. Okay, it's a little more than I need. So you can see that it has bumped it up to a little bit over. So let me just divide it down a little bit. 4,500. Okay, so you can see the bars are about even. So you can keep playing with this until you get it, the bars about even. And then what this is telling me is that I will have adequate retirement income through these three sources to pay for my life and retirement, based on 80% of my current income. And so what it's telling me is that if this were my scenario and I was 35 years old and I retired at age 62 and this was my current income and I saved $4,500 a year, which is about a little over 5% of my income annually, and I'm targeting and I park that $4,500 somewhere that can earn compound interest because I keep it invested, so it earns an annual return of about 6% per year, which again is moderately conservative. When I retire at age 62, I will have achieved 80% income replacement. So that's what this graph is telling me. Now, saving 4,500 a year might sound a little onerous. Um, what happens if I break that down into 26 pay periods? Okay, let's make sure that I'm not a robot here. $173 per month. I'm sorry, per pay period. So instead of thinking about this total that I want to save, what I want to do is break it down per pay period. If I save 173 and think about my paycheck, pull out your pay stub, see if you can find $173 worth of room. Okay. Now, if you choose to save that money in the 457B plan, it won't be a $173 hit to your paycheck. It will be about three-quarters of that because you will be taking that money out on a pre-tax basis. So if I take that 173 and multiply it by 0.75, oops, 0.75, it would be more of a $130 decrease to my take-home pay. Um, so the bottom line here is that if you right now do these estimates and plug all the numbers into a calculator and see if you need to save additional money right now to get pointed in the 80% income replacement trajectory. And if you go ahead and start that savings process and get pointed in that trajectory, you will find over time, it's not perfect. It's not going to get you perfectly pointed down to 80% at the last dollar. But what I think you should do is you just come back and do the process again every 6 months or every year. Get the estimates, plug the numbers into a calculator, see if you're saving adequately, and then readjust your savings. And I think you'll find that if you readjust your savings, if you keep assessing this over time and readjust your savings, by the time you get to retirement, you will have achieved the income replacement goal that you set out to achieve, and you will have adequate income when you retire. If you can't start saving what it's telling you now because you can't find that much room in your paycheck, what I recommend is just start somewhere, start small. Say, like, have them sign up for the 457B plan, have them take $20 out of your paycheck and see what that feels like as a reduction in your take home pay. Just like see if you can adjust your expenses in your life around that. And then maybe once you've gotten used to it, come back a few months later, maybe up it to 40. And then maybe continue to do that until you get up to what the calculator is telling you to save, and then you're pointed in that trajectory. Okay, so I think I've said enough. There are some other slides in the presentation you can go through regarding compound interest, like saving your money someplace that you can earn compound interest because you get a kind of an accelerated effect. And if you do put your money in an investment account like the 457B program, you will enjoy the benefits of the power of compound interest. In most cases, the probability is very high that you will. And it's just generally a good idea to be cautious with where you're putting that money, because the higher the potential for risk, I'm sorry, the higher potential for return, the higher the risk potentially. Um, so just, you can do research on your own. A good place to research where you are parking your money. Let me see. I think I mentioned it here somewhere. Some different savings options. You can research different places to put your money on NerdWallet and Investopedia. Those are two really good places. They break it down, the different investment, places that you can put money. Um, they break it down really easily so everyone can understand. But I think one of the best places to put your money is in that 457B plan. that 457B account. And it looks like I haven't updated this slide either. Um, so let me go ahead at this point and switch over to turn it over to Gene Hilliard. Gene, are you there?
I am here, Mike. How's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for
Good,
being here,
good.
Gene.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Gene Hilliard is a financial educator who the county of Alameda has hired for many, many years to provide this type of education on deferred compensation, the 457B plan. Um, to the employees of Alameda County. If you don't work for Alameda County, you work for one of the five other employers, 99% of what he has to say is going to apply to you also, because you're all government workers and you all have this special ability as government workers to save additional money out of your paycheck on a tax deferred basis. In a 457B account. It's kind of like a 401k on the private sector, but you get to take advantage of the 457B account, which has special rules around it, special advantages. And you all have access to it as government workers. Um, and so, uh, if you want more, just real quick, if you want, again, that step-by-step process for getting pointed in your retirement savings trajectory is at acera.org/planning. And at this point, I have exhausted my financial information that I know, so I'm going to turn it over to the expert, Gene Hilliard. Thanks for being here.
All right. Perfect.
And this is
Uh,
going to last probably 30, 45 minutes, right?
Correct. Correct. All right. Let me share my screen here.
So this is the way, like, I said that there's, kind of ways around the edges to dial in your Sarah retirement, mostly by just working longer. But this is the real way that you can dial in your future retirement income by really dialing in your additional savings. Okay, take it away, Gene.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. Again, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. As Mike had mentioned, I was hired roughly 16, it'll be 17 years in June. At the time, I was hired by Prudential, who now transitioned to Empower. So I was hired by the county, hired by Prudential slash Empower to provide retirement planning, investment guidance, and education to county employees. So it's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you guys this morning. A little bit about my background. I've been in the industry roughly 23 years, helping clients create wealth and maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of the kids and grandkids. And at the same time, I'm a retirement counselor. And my goal as a retirement counselor is to help each and every one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. What does that mean? Well, I'd like for you to receive 100% of your salary when you retire. Uh, but that's a challenge. You don't need it, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But between 70, 80, 90% is roughly what you're going to need. But hey, I say let's shoot for 100. If we need to settle for a little bit less, then so be it. Okay. I also want to press upon everyone that it just appears when I'm doing these presentations, people think of retirement, they think of age 65, 66, 67, etc. But when I think about retirement, it's not, retirement in your 60s. It could potentially be retirement in your 50s, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you were to have the time at your disposal to do whatever you want, whenever you want? For example, maybe you want to spend more time with your kids while you're in your 50s, right? And don't have to wait. Or maybe there's a pet project, or maybe there's a business that you have always wanted to start. You just can't seem to find the time because you're working. Well, guess what? Deferred comp is an opportunity for you to possibly retire early to do some of those things, right? To have a little bit more control over your time. So it's not just about retirement in your 60s when you're old. You could potentially retire sooner than that. And it starts with investing in deferred comp. So let's talk about that a little bit. So some of the key topics I'm going to go through today, a little bit about retirement income, the benefits of saving through the plan, and how to enroll. So let's talk about retirement income. Now, in this particular case, I am talking about you're in your 60s. You've retired, you're no longer working. It's important for you to get a bit of an idea of what you envision retirement to look like, right? Are you going to travel? Are you going to spend some more time with your friends? Are you going to split time between a vacation home? Or maybe you're going to, spend quiet time or at home, or maybe you're going to play some golf, once a week in retirement, right? The whole point of this discussion is to kind of get a bit of a feel for how much money you need. Now, can also apply to someone who retires early. What do you plan on doing when you do retire early in your 50s? What's the plan? Maybe you need to create some income, but maybe also you're going to make a few bucks with your business that you're going to start. Or maybe you want to just maybe work part-time, right? So you have your part-time income and you have your retirement income through a Sarah, through deferred comp. So you want to kind of envision how much money you're going to need. What are you going to be doing once you leave county service? Okay, here's the slide I talked about earlier about how much money typically you're going to need. It's between 70 and 90% of your pre-retirement salary, right? But I said, hey, let's shoot for 100. Let's settle for 70 or 80. Okay. Where will your income come from? In most cases, when you retire, you have Social Security. I would encourage every one of you to, estimate, log on to ssa.gov, create a user ID and password, and find out how much you're going to receive at age 62 or at age 66/67 or at age 70. I also encourage you, and I'm sure Mike mentioned it, that you want to log on to acera.org to get an estimate of roughly how much you should expect to receive from your pension. Okay. Income from assets. Maybe you've saved money over time and you've purchased real estate, or maybe you anticipate inheriting real estate from your parents. So you're going to receive some income from those assets. Maybe you're going to do a little bit of part-time working, right? So you're going to have some income from earnings. So these are the separate buckets that you're going to pull from once you leave county service, once you decide to stop working. Okay. What are the benefits of the plan? Well, the biggest benefit, I think, is that money comes directly out of your paycheck. So you don't have to write a check and put it into the account. So it automatically comes out of your paycheck. And one of the best ways to build wealth is, and many people, professionals say this, pay yourself first, then pay your bills. So this gives you an opportunity to pay yourself first. Before you even uh, receive your paycheck, money has already come out and it's invested into deferred comp. Okay. I would typically recommend you want to contribute roughly between 10 and 15% of your salary in deferred comp. You don't have to go that high because the good news is you're investing in a Sarah. A Sarah is roughly 5% or maybe more. So, but start somewhere and continue to build on that over time. How much can contribute to deferred comp? I need to change my slide too, Mike. But in 2026, the maximum for a person who is under 50, the max is 24,500. So the number is right, the year is incorrect in here. But if you're 50 and over, you're allowed to invest an additional $8,000 a year, additional. And because of the Secure Act 2.0, if you're between 60 and 63, you can invest an additional 11,250 rather than the 800 into deferred comp. And there's another thing that I want to bring up is because of the Secure Act, if your income, your AGI, adjusted gross income, exceeds, I believe it's $160,000 in the previous year, all catch-up contributions have to go into the Roth. So you can invest 24,500, but if you're over 50, that 8,000 additional money must go into the Roth version of deferred comp. Or if you're between 60 and 63, that 11,250 must go into the Roth version of deferred comp, assuming again that your AGI, adjusted gross income from the previous year, exceeds 160,000. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. There's also something called the 3-year catch up, where you're allowed to invest $49,000 a year. But that whole AGI 160,000 discussion still applies. Only 24.5 can go into the pre-tax, and then the additional 24.5 must go into the Roth. Okay, vesting, there are no vesting schedules with deferred comp. So 100% of the money that you've invested in deferred comp is your money that you have access to once you leave county service. It's not about age. You don't have to be 59 and a half. It's once you leave county service, you have access to your money immediately. There are roughly, I believe there are 15 core investments in deferred comp. So if you're not a risk taker, you prefer to invest in something safe, there's the Alameda County Stable Value Fund, no risk. If you are a type of investor that believe in index funds, there are some investments in deferred comp that are very similar to index funds. If you are a socially responsible investor, there are investments available to you in the plan. But if you want to create a diversified portfolio of small companies, medium-sized companies, large companies, some international exposure, some bond exposure, uh, those are types of investments that are available to you. Okay. There are 3 ways in which you can contribute to deferred comp. You can invest pre-tax, you can invest in the Roth version of deferred comp, or you can roll money into the plan. What's the difference between pre-tax and Roth? Pre-tax is you're investing money, you're not paying taxes on the money, you're deferring those taxes until you leave county service. Roth, on the other hand, is you actually are paying the taxes right now on all contributions. However, under certain guidelines, you can withdraw the money once you leave county service tax free. So one is you're investing, you're not paying the taxes currently on the front end, but you're paying them on the back end. Roth is you're paying them on the front end, and you avoid paying any taxes on the back end. Okay. And I kind of explained the pre-tax. Pre-tax growth is tax deferred. Your current taxable income is lowered. The other thing I'll bring up is you won't see a dollar for dollar difference in your paycheck if you're investing pre-tax. Figure for every $100 that you invest pre-tax into deferred comp, your paycheck's going to change by roughly $70. So you may be able to afford more than you think. And here's the Roth. As I mentioned, you're investing money right now, you're paying the taxes, you're avoiding having to pay the taxes in the future, provided that you qualify. How do you qualify? The age thing pops up. So the growth of your Roth 457 money is tax-free to you, provided that you're number one, 59 and a half or older. So the age kicks in with the Roth, and the account has to be open for your first contribution has to be made 5 years ago, five or more years ago. The beauty of compounding, your money will grow much faster provided that you're investing in the pre-tax version of deferred comp because you're not paying taxes along the way. So if you use the rule of 72, for example, which is if you take the product of two numbers that equal roughly 70, $72, 72, or just 72 in general, that's when your money will double. What do I mean by that? So the example in the middle, your money will double in 12 years. provided that you have a 6% rate of return. 6 times 12 is 72, right? Or you can flip it. If you want your money to double in 6 years, right? You have to receive a average rate of return of 12 years. So that's the rule, or 12%. So that's the kind of the rule of 72. But the point of the slide is that your principal plus the interest earns interest in year one. Your principal plus the interest earns earns your money or gives you a rate of return. So your money grows much faster when you don't have to pay taxes along the way. Okay. You're in charge. You tell us what percent of your salary you want to contribute. You tell us how much you want to contribute per paycheck, and then everything gets set up for you. I, for one, prefer that folks contribute a percent of their salary, not a dollar amount. Why? Because as you get raises, if you use a percent of your salary, your contribution rate will automatically increase, right? But if you use a dollar amount and you get a raise, you have to remember to go in and make that change to the system. But if you use a percent of your salary and it automatically increases, that's where you can really supercharge. You can really create significant wealth over time. Let's talk a little bit about investing. What type of investor are you? Are you a do it for me investor? Are you a help me do it investor? Are you a do it myself investor? So if you if you're looking for someone to handle this for you, Fisher Personalized Retirement Managed Accounts is probably going to be a good option for you. There's an additional cost for that. If you just need some assistance, and you just want to help me do it, or you want someone to help you do it, then there's Goalmaker. And if you're a do it myself investor, hey, you do your research, look at all the funds, you create your own personalized portfolio based on your expertise, and then you're off and running. Real quick on Goalmaker. Goalmaker is an award-winning asset allocation tool where you tell us your investor style, tell us when you anticipate retiring, what year. Is it 2040? Is it 2030? Is it 2028? You tell us when you anticipate retiring, and you get asset allocation, automatically portfolio that's created, automatic rebalancing, and age adjustment. And here's a kind of a chart of a goal maker asset allocation that's created for a moderate investor. Rebalancing in a nutshell is explained like this. Let's say hypothetically, you're told by Goalmaker that you should invest 80% of your money in the stock market or in stock funds. 20% of your money should be invested in bonds or stable value investments. And over time, let's say hypothetically, your 80-20 portfolio turns into 90-10, which is way too much risk than when you started. You started at 80% of your money invested in risky investments. It's now in 90. That can happen in a bull market. So what rebalancing does, it does all the necessary buying and selling to get you back to 80-20. Okay, so that's rebalancing. Okay, age adjustment is that process of as you get closer and closer to retirement, the account gets more and more conservative, which makes total sense. You don't have time on your side to recoup any short-term losses. So it's important as you navigate retirement and you're getting closer to retirement that more of your money is invested in safe investments. Some of you may have a 401k, a 403b at a previous employer that maybe is dormant. Maybe it's not earning a whole heck of a lot. You might want to consider rolling that money into deferred comp. So reach out to me. I can walk you through the process if you're interested in rolling money from an outside institution into deferred comp. Okay. The other thing I want to stress, and I mentioned it earlier, is that there's no penalty when you withdraw deferred comp once you leave county service. There are no age requirements. The other note that I want to bring up is that once you turn 73, you're required by law to start taking distributions. So I'm sure many of you are not even close to that age. So, but just be aware that once you leave county service and you're 73 years of age or older, RMD is going to be required, whether you need the money or not. You need to start taking some of that money out. So, so let's dive in. How do you enroll? Well, just log on, go to treasurer.acgov.org, pull down a an application. Unfortunately, we don't have a DocuSign for that, so you're going to have to print it. Enter a percent of your salary. Just go with the pre-tax version of deferred comp. And then I would also suggest that you, when you get to the investment section, just choose a moderate portfolio for a person who's going to retire in 2040 or later. Check that box and keep it moving. Okay. If you're currently in the plan, but you want to increase how much you're contributing, go to the same website and print the payroll modification form. Okay. So just know that you can make changes to the amounts into deferred comp at any time. So if, for example, you want to decrease it for a couple of months, you certainly can. There's nothing that precludes you from making any changes to your deferred comp. But I will say you don't want to kind of be what I would say, my mother would say, willy-nilly about it. Change, increase, decrease every month. Pick a number that you feel comfortable with and see if you can stick with it throughout the year. And then in January, make a decision on whether or not it's appropriate to increase or decrease. Once you've completed the application, your first contribution has taken place. I'd like for everyone to create a user ID and password for the Empower Alameda County site. So go to alamedacountydcp.com, create a user ID and password, and you're off and running. Okay. Note that if you have yet to complete an application and your first contribution has not taken place, you cannot register for the site. It's going to kick you out or say, we don't know who you are. So wait until you've actually completed the application, your first contribution has taken place, then you can create a user ID and password and register for the account. Okay. For those of you who are in the plan or about to join the plan, there's an app that you can download to your phone, so you can keep track of what's going on with your account. You can pull down statements, see what your balance is, what your rate of returns are, etc. So there's an app. Just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. Um, if you'd like to call Empower or call me, you can just dial 855-969-4572. Hit option 1 if you want to speak with someone at Empower. Hit option 2 if you'd like to speak with someone with Alameda County in the deferred compensation unit. And you would hit option 3 if you're looking to reach myself at my office. Okay. If you have questions or you need some assistance, there are 4 of us who are advisors on the plan. So you can meet with Mark Tomei, you can meet with myself, Dan or Jose, call the same number, or you can log online at alamedacountydcp.com. Actually, you don't have to log in. Just go to the site, click on, I believe it says, meet your plan representatives. Click on that, and then our pictures will show up, and then you can schedule an appointment online, whether it be a phone appointment or a virtual appointment. Okay. So log online, call the 855 number. If you're looking to get a hold of me directly and you want to bypass the 855 numbers, please don't hesitate. You can call my office directly at 510-562-6355. So that's 510-562-6355. Or you can email me at g_Hilliard, HILLIARD, at emergefinancial.com. Okay. So email me, call me. You can use this 855 number, and we'll get you all set up. So with that, I'd love to entertain questions, the burning question that you guys may have.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gene.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Mike.